you remember my imaginary friends?
I can't remember if you're imaginary friends or the voices in your fucking head.
What's the difference? Do you remember what you would yell to me when I was off in my own world?
Earth to Gert.
Where are you, Gert? Earth to Gert. Gert. Earth to Gert. So I'm starting a podcast, and that's the title.
Earth to Gert?
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Earth to Gert. It is June, and June is not only Gay Pride Month, but I don't really care about that. I'm here for Men's Mental Health Month. When I started, even before the podcast, when I first started putting out just some videos of myself rambling about my mental health on Facebook, a good number of the folks that reached out to me to sort of say, hey, I've been struggling with this too, was guy friends of mine, friends from all walks of life, from high school to work, cousins, all walks of life. And one of the things in the news that rocked my world the most was the death of Robin Williams. He has always been by far one of my favorite actors. Watching my father watch Good Morning Vietnam is probably one of my favorite memories of my dad. That and Naked Gun. So yeah, Robin Williams' death was pretty significant for me because, and I know he was suffering from, some health things, and his book is next on my list to read, but I believe he had some sort of dementia. Don't quote me on that, but, everybody comes to that based off of their own circumstances, and one of the things that rocked me is that the time that it happened is when I was coming out of my really suicidal days, and I just kept wondering, what did I do to beat the symptoms and those thoughts that even Robin Williams couldn't do? And again, I guess, everybody's circumstances are completely different in why they get there. So anyways, once I started doing the podcast, I would say it's probably 50-50 on who I talk to, whether it's male or female, on the mental health stuff. A lot of people have messaged me and reached out to thank me for doing this and to share their own experiences. So I started asking some guy friends of mine if they would want to be on the show. Some of the guys that I have asked have been the first people to say no. And that sort of just, for me, and I get it super scary. Like I said, it took Reagan and I a long time, 2 years before we actually recorded. And each time I go to record with someone, we reschedule all the time. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the anticipatory anxiety of doing this. But I have received some no's from some guys on doing this, and I think it's just the stigma. One of the guys that did not want to be on the show. He wrote something for me to read, and in talking to him, it just, there's like this stigma, and he knows that the people that know him already know this about him, that he has lived an anxious life, but it's, I think this, I don't know, stigma of other people fully seeing us and knowing us, and especially for guys, it's a sign of weakness. 75%, I think, is the number of suicides are by men, and I don't know what the percentage of that. There's a high number of those that have no mental health, stuff in their history. Like, no one knows. So guys are just, more than women, trained and conditioned not to speak about their mental health struggles. But it's something everybody goes through. It's not really just men's mental health, but I do want to, have some attention drawn to that, because you guys are struggling just as much as we are. So this is one of the guys that I talked to, like I just said, offered up this for you guys on his anxious life. An Anxious Life by an Anonymous Friend. Where to begin? Well, I'll preface it with this. I've always been the cautious one. I seem to think of consequences and repercussions when other kids my age didn't. I would think of the possible injuries that could result from whatever we were doing that didn't seem to occur to the others. I would think of getting in trouble for whatever we were doing, which was definitely possible. I don't know if this made me smarter than them, or anxiety was my brain's way of protecting and guiding me. But anyways, I'll outline some things that come to mind from my experiences with anxiety and panic disorder. Approximately 5 to 8 years old. I remember staying at my grandparents' house some weekends if my parents went out. I would lay in bed worried that they were going to get killed in a car accident or something catastrophic was going to happen to them. 13 years old. I went to an NFL game at Foxborough Stadium to watch the Bills and Patriots with my 2 uncles. On the way out of the game, the cheerleaders were handing out posters, so naturally, being the red-blooded American male, I went over to grab one of them. When I turned around to get back with my uncles, they had disappeared into the crowd of thousands of people. I immediately panicked. An overwhelming feeling of pure doom swept across my body. I flagged down a couple of cops, and we proceeded to drive around the parking lots until we found them. No symptoms of panic or anxiety followed that day until a few years later. 16 to 19 years old. One of the first instances I remember was when I took the SATs. I arrived in the parking lot with a female friend and at least one male friend, and I got a panicky feeling and lightheadedness as I was about to exit my vehicle. I sat in my car for a few minutes to pull myself together. I had no idea what was happening to me. Another instance when I was at a Green Jackets football game at East Field. I was in the stands and got that panicky feeling out of the blue. I remember walking off the bleachers and walking around for a bit until I felt better. The same thing happened around the same time period when I was at a house party. I went outside to get some air and it subsided after a few minutes. The funny thing is, the instance at the SATs, Green Jackets game, and the house party all happened when a girl I liked was there. I was not very experienced with girls at the time, but I really liked her. I don't know if she knew how I felt, and I still don't know if she ever realized I liked her like that. She was very flirtatious and made me nervous because I lacked confidence at that time. Another time I was in the cafeteria at school, and I got the feeling of butterflies in my stomach, followed by a cold wave across the top of my head and the feeling that I was going to pass out. I walked up the back stairs and went outside to get some air. The aforementioned situations have stuck with me for 30 years. I don't know why, out of all of them, those particular times are ingrained in my brain, yet they remain. The summer I graduated high school was probably one of the most anxiety-ridden, panic-filled times of my life. I struggled all summer. I couldn't eat. I'd gag when I put food in my mouth. I was having panic attacks regularly and began avoidance behaviors. I was completely in fight or flight mode the entire summer. I experienced derealization, scary shit, feeling faint, OCD, mainly having to do things a certain number of times, shortness of breath, heart beating out of my chest, health anxiety, gas, diarrhea, and the fear of throwing up in front of people due to gagging. The thought of high school being over, friends going away to college, and beginning adult life was overwhelming, to say the least. I didn't want to grow up. I enjoyed high school. I loved my friends and all of the bullshit we did together. Those were the best times of my life. No responsibilities, carefree time. At the time, my group of friends was more important to me than my family. When most of them went away to college, it felt like my family was being torn apart. I don't like change, but I survived. 19 years old to present. I attended community college for a couple of years and held a job working around 40 hours a week. The panic attacks seemed to lessen for a while, then came back. It got to the point where I went to my primary care doctor and was put on Celexa. I didn't notice much of a difference, but remained on it for a few years. Avoidance behavior continued. Panic attacks still showed up here and there, but symptom attacks of anxiety were becoming a daily thing. Most days I just wanted to sleep because it was my only escape from feeling anxious. I have canceled so many appointments and plans at the last minute due to anxiety. I went to a psychiatrist and he had me start Zoloft in therapy. He started me on way too high a dose of Zoloft and I felt weird. I ended up cutting it back and I started to feel better. Therapy didn't last long. I felt it was a waste of time. I didn't like the shrink at all either, so that solidified my decision to stop going. A couple of years later, I found a therapist and gave it another shot. I went to 4 or 5 sessions and didn't really get anything out of it, so I stopped going. I don't have anything against talking with a therapist, but it just didn't work for me. I have found that reading books on the subject and watching YouTube videos make a big difference and give good coping strategies. The book Dare by Barry McDonough is probably the best I've read on the subject. It teaches the DARE technique: diffuse, allow, run toward, engage, to help people overcome anxiety and panic attacks by facing them head-on instead of avoiding them. I highly recommend it to anyone suffering from this. In May 2024, I had a bad spell of anxiety. I was eating dinner with my wife's extended family and a piece of baked potato skin got stuck in my throat. One of my biggest fears is choking or somebody else choking. It didn't block my airway, but I could feel it stuck in my throat, which gave me a panicky feeling. I proceeded to get up from the table and go outside to try to dislodge it. After numerous coughs and hawk tuas, it came out. This incident made my health anxiety super bad. I couldn't eat solid food for a week, relying solely on Ensure shakes for nutrition because I was convinced, ready for this, that I had esophageal cancer. My brain fixates on things and convinces me that I have all sorts of ailments. It's maddening because deep down I know that I'm fine. During this bout of anxiety, I sat in my recliner for a week, other than going to bed at night, watched TV, and slept. I was stuck in fight or flight and couldn't get out of it. Finally, next Monday came and I knew I had to go back to work. I couldn't sleep that night. I was up until 3 a.m. and had to be up at 6 a.m. I went to work exhausted, but made it through the day. That night, I couldn't fall asleep again and I was getting really mad about it. I laid there for hours until I finally said, "Fuck this," and took a Xanax, which I have had a prescription for and had been afraid to take them. I took one, and about 10 to 15 minutes later, I went to the kitchen to get a drink. My wife asked me how I was feeling, and until then, it didn't dawn on me that I wasn't anxious anymore. I said, "Holy shit, is this what normal people feel like all the time? I've never been this calm my entire life." I went to bed and fell asleep. Knock on wood, I haven't had any major attacks since, but I have had some small symptom attacks. I'll conclude this by saying that anxiety and panic attacks may be debilitating, but they can be managed and you can live a healthy life. If you are struggling, please know that anxiety or panic attacks won't last forever. In the moment, it is very frightening and could even feel like you're going to die. You won't. Fuck anxiety and fuck panic attacks. Tell them that the next time they present themselves. It helps. Yeah, what he said. Fuck anxiety. Fuck panic attacks. thank you all so much for listening. The rest of this month, I hopefully, if I get them recorded and edited, will have more conversations with some guys. I did get some yeses, so I will have some conversations with some guys for this next month. All right, thank you so much for listening. Bye.